Mrs. Adebisi Adelabu, the General Manager, Lagos State Parking Authority. We want to thank you so much indeed for joining us here on Control TV.
Good afternoon.
Why the initiative to start with?
Right, so I'm going to take you back in time. Towards the end of Governor Fashola's tenure, he realized there was a need to restructure parking in Lagos. To cut the long story short, successive administration, we're here now, and parking has become a major problem, even greater than it was in 2015. Governor Sanwo-Olu, using the theme's agenda, transport being the first pillar, decided that to tackle the traffic gridlock in Lagos holistically, parking is a fundamental part of it. And as such, he decided to create the Lagos State Parking Authority, whose core objective is to regulate and enforce all forms of parking across the state, namely on-street, off-street, and parks and garages.
Tell us how this is going to work. I mean, stage by stage, do you have a plan? Lagos, for what it is, cosmopolitan, population of 24 million counting still. What's the strategy? How do you intend to tackle this?
So first of all, I think it's key, not just for Lagos, but anywhere in the world, to get your citizens on board. We want to get Lagosians on board. I think that most Lagosians understand how vital parking is in their everyday lives. On average, you spend about 5, 10, 15 minutes looking for parking in certain areas of Lagos. Parking is up to a key factor in congestion. So first thing is, let's get the citizens on board, understand that it is eventually towards helping create a greater Lagos, a safer Lagos, a freer Lagos for everyone. Once we have that, the next thing is our operations. How do we go about it? We've broken metropolitan Lagos up into different segments. And then, of course, we have a strategy saying, look, we'll have the advocacy first, implement signages, lane mark, so that we know that before we can begin to regulate and enforce. That's the way we want to go about it.
Enforcement, that's the key word there,
Yes.
with the level of education, if you will, which is rather low. You have to do a lot of advocacy and sensitization and all of that. Do you see, especially those really tough, stubborn drivers, not parking in areas where you designate no parking?
I think it's a change in behavior. It's a change in culture. We might not get there day one, but at some point everybody has to understand that we will get there eventually. People, it's like a child, you've been doing the same thing every day and you've been getting used to it. At some point, by the time you're like 10, 11 and someone tries to tell you stop it, it's not going to happen immediately. But then that's why for those people who feel like they don't have to obey the law or they are above the law, there are punitive measures. I must stress that for us, this authority isn't set up to be as such a revenue generating agency. Its fundamental function is to solve the parking crisis in Lagos. After that, then we look to create employment. There are times I'm a mother, I go to the market, and then you see the area boys come, 500 naira for parking, 1,000 naira for parking. And sometimes I engage some of them in conversation. Everybody wants a sense of purpose. Everybody wants a sense of belonging. Some of them are very educated, master's degree. They don't have jobs. So when we talk, I say to them, okay, so you're doing this thing, you're doing it so well. We bring you on board via a concessionaire, and you get your money, and you should see the look on their faces, the dignity that comes from that. I think above all, that will give us the greatest satisfaction of all.
So the structure, how is it supposed to work? The structure, where do you start from? What are the phases, step by step, until you get to such a point where you're able to engage perhaps some of those boys that are loitering around and give them a lease of life?
That's a fantastic question. So like I said in the beginning, parking is divided into on-street, off-street, and then the parks and garages. Parking isn't new in Lagos. People pay for parking. It's just unregulated. You pay to faceless people without recourse to the government. So we take it on street. On street is simply meaning parking on the road. Now, before you park on the road, you must check that it's not impeding any traffic. So signages will go up, lane markings will go up to let you know where and where you can't park. Now, if you violate those, of course, your cars will be clamped or towed away. For those people that operate off-street car parks, we're saying we need to have you on our database. There are a lot of crimes that are committed in some of these car parks. Some of them charge exorbitantly higher than they should be. We are saying we want you on our database. If something goes wrong somewhere, we need to be able to say so and so owns this place. Something happened here at a specific time. We want to look into that. It also means that as a body, we can the laws that have been established via parking policy, we can roll them out easier. So these are the specific size of your bays. This is how, if you have a certain capacity, this is the amount of security we expect you should have there, and so many other operational issues that should come with that. We look at people with a disability. Right now, there's no provision for them, Ideally, it should be up to about 20% of the parking space in Lagos should be for disabled and emergency services. There's nothing like that at the moment. So as we lane mark, you'll find those bays that are specific for disability permit holders and for emergency services.
So I'm wondering, because as a Lagosian, anytime I go to, say, Idumota in the markets there, or I go to Balogun markets there, I have to park in a space there. They charge me between 500 to 1,000 naira. All that goes to you now.
No, it doesn't. So what we do is saying, already there are people that collect money for parking there. We are saying, let us lane mark. We will put signages. So you're allowed to park between so hours to so hours. In a typical CBD area, it's between 7 and 7, right? Come to the authority and apply for the right of your concession. That way, we've seen your request for proposal, we've seen your business plans, we're in agreement. You have a legally binding agreement with the government. You will still run those areas via the concession. You will create employment via the concession, and then a percentage of that goes to you, a percentage of that comes to the state.
Moving forward now, just to have a better understanding and perspective of how all of this is going to culminate into one big Lagos state devoid of wrong parking, illegal parkings. A law is in place to ensure that this stands tight and works for Lagosians. But the structures that will get this to work seem to be lacking. Bad road, for instance. Areas where you can hardly even maneuver to get through. And you find a lot of inner roads in that kind of situation or condition, having cars even belonging to street tenants or landlords parked just by the road. How do you intend to tackle that?
Like I said, we've been thinking about this for a while. Part of the reason why we're not implementing on-street parking streetwide is because of what we've said. So we have a list of roads, of all the roads in Lagos State. We have looked at them and we understand that some of them are not functional right now. Some of them are recoverables, which means it needs minimal work before you can lane mark. Some of them are good to go. Of course, as a responsible state, some of those roadworks, which some have already been done, some are ongoing. For example, in the GRA area, you can see Shoboa Road will do along the other axis are being done at the moment. We're not going to lane mark when the roads are not adequate. The government is going to fix those roads before we begin to lane mark, because we can't lane mark on roads that are not properly tarred. So those kind of things, the works will be going on. But there are already established modes of areas where you park. People park there every day. I use GRA as an example again, Isaac John. It's not meant to be an on-street parking road. It's meant for 2 lanes. And so you find that when you're parking those areas, the traffic gridlock just starts to grow. So those kind of places, affirmative action will start. Now, the other thing is that we want to pilot. So we're using 2 central business district areas, Ikeja and VI. And once we've done our pilot and we're happy with what we've seen, then we begin to take phase by phase until eventually we get to the whole street, the whole state. But we're not going to sort of start from day one, everybody is the same thing. No, because what we expect is that Lagos will adapt to new technology. We have a 5-year plan in the making where we're saying we know that as of today, artificial intelligence is the future of parking, but we're not there yet. We need to work towards getting there. And how do we get there? We need data. So we need the number plates. So every time you pay for parking, whichever way you pay, your number plate will be taking on. That way, as we evolve to that eventual goal, we need the information to get us there. That's what we're trying to achieve.
When former President Goodluck Jonathan did the CCTV project, it greeted everybody with so much, excitement. But that failed. What guarantee do we have that yours wouldn't tow the same path?
Well, I think the first thing is that we're mindful of the population, of our citizens. Lagos is such a cosmopolitan, dynamic city in itself. And we believe that we are a city of progressives. Like I've said earlier, Lagosians already pay for parking. It's nothing new. And a face behind those people that run the system. Let's get it done the right way. When you go to London or Joburg or New York, parking is part of the culture. You have a car, you factor parking even before you leave the house. If we truly want to own the mega city status, Greater Lagos, then we must do something about parking. It affects our everyday lives. And so number one, I feel it's fundamental that the buying of the citizen is there. And then after that, we roll out strategically. So we're not sort of taking a one-size-fits-all approach. We're not doing that. We know that some drivers are uneducated. The same way an enforcement officer would approach you in a VI might be different from the way they would approach you in Alimosho. Most people in the VIs will probably choose to pay by card, choose to pay via the app, In Alimosho, most people want to give you cash. So there's a different operational structure for each area because we understand that each area should be treated differently. But like I said, of course, the pilot is really sort of to look at what we have on board, to see where we need to correct, and then only then do we begin to roll out in terms of on-street parking. Off-street parking is already established. We're even encouraging people to come and build more car parks. Lagos needs more car parks. If you have multi-story car parks, it is a viable business. I can't express that enough. People underestimate the value, the revenue in parking. And we're saying build car parks, run it, there's money in it. The Lagos Islands could do with a car park, the VIs, the Lekkis, Surulere. They all need car parks. Ikeja, L.P.A, truck parks. So all these places are in need of these infrastructure. We are inviting the private sector to come in and say, okay, let's build these things. Let's give you the license to build them. Run it, make your money, enter PPP partnerships with us. That's what we're trying to encourage in terms of off-street. So it's both on-street and it's off-street to create a holistic solution in terms of delivering us from the current situation we find ourselves in for parking irregularities.
When you talked about AI, artificial intelligence, as part of a solution, the future and the solution to these parking problems that we have, what's the place of AI fused into this plan?
Okay, so in some European countries at the moment, they have sensors, but not in the ground sensors. They have them attached to poles, street lights, and the rest of that. The moment you park in a bay, you're captured. It reads your number plate. It will tell you when you've parked there, how long you've parked there, and you can get your ticket in the post. Or you connect via the app and you make your payment. At some point in future, we envision a Lagos that it will be that easy. And as you can see, the Honorable Commissioner is doing a lot of work towards pushing Lagos forward. So it's not, to solve the traffic issue of Lagos, it's not just a parking problem. It's a traffic management problem, which is also L.A.S.P.A. It's a VIO problem because you need to make sure you have the right cars on the road, not cars that break down every 2 kilometers. So when this year they started out, look, every car needs to go for their vehicle inspection physically, you realize that a lot of them failed because they have issues. If cars are breaking down every 2 kilometers of the expressway, there's bound to be traffic. So it's a chain reaction, and I think people need to understand that. That yes, if I enforce all the parking rules, but your car is still breaking down anyway because somehow you've managed to skip VIO, there's an issue. So what the governor via the Honorable Commissioner is saying is the whole transport family needs to work together to solve the problems, to make sure that from the minute you take your vehicle out of your house to that place where you get to your destination and you want to park, it's as seamless as possible.
You know, I'm just trying to wrap this around my head. How much is this going to cost the government?
Well, I think, like I've said, parking is an established business. So what we are saying is, yes, of course, we'll have to incur some certain costs trying to get technology on board, trying to lane mark, the fundamentals, putting up signages. But what beyond the cost? How useful is it? How effective is it? What change is it making to the lives of people? And we believe that the cost is justified.
Are there timelines to it?
Oh yes, but like I said, I think sensitization is first, June. The people need to know what is coming. Once they know that, then you can't enforce without proper signage. Signage needs to go up. You need to tell people, I'm allowed to park here, I'm not allowed to park here. This bay is for HDVs only. This bay is for emergency vehicles only. This bay is for disability only. And then we can begin to say, okay, so we've had those things in place. You can't feign ignorance anymore. Let's start to put the operation in work.
One thing you have to contend with, I believe, is the issue of the BRT. You know how difficult it is. You still see people drive along the BRT despite it being illegal for them to do so. If that didn't succeed, how then can you say of yours?
Look, I say to people, unless there is a life or death situation, somebody's having a baby, something is, something where if you're stopped by law enforcement, they can understand. I see no reason why you feel you're better than everybody and want to jump traffic. We all get in traffic. It's part of it. If you're in New York, will you tell them that you want to go on the bus lanes or wherever else in the world because you're stuck in traffic? We go to other people's countries and we follow the rules. Why is it so hard to follow it in our own country? For me, sometimes it's trying to wrap my head around those issues, and I see no reason why. I warn my drivers, don't do it. If you do it, your salary is gone. Don't do it. And I think the more, if you let people understand that, look, this is it. Some people will somehow always feel they can outsmart the law. That is why you have the enforcement, and that is why they pay those fines. And once you've made an example of 1 or 2 or 3 people who feel they're above the law, I'm sure other people will see that an example. But majority of people are law avoiding. Majority of Lagosians don't use BRT, even when they have the opportunity to do so. You'll find that they don't. It's just unfortunate that in any society you will have rule breakers, and it's those rule breakers that the law has to contend with. You will still find people, even 10 years from now, the same way with the BRT, that will feel that, well, they can just quickly park here for 2 minutes and run into a shop and come back out, and they won't get caught. It's inevitable. You'll find that anywhere in the world. It's just not in Lagos. But has the BRT been a success? Absolutely. It has transformed the lives of so many people in terms of getting them from point A to point B. From Ikorodu to CMS before BRT was a nightmare. And we can see that now Ikorodu has opened up, mostly because BRT is there. People know that I can sit on this bus in 25 minutes. I'm at CMS, I can get to work in no time. So we believe that we start from somewhere. It is better to start from somewhere than nowhere. Do we just leave it and say, oh, parking is so terrible, let's just fold our arms and watch? That's not what government is there for. Government is there to make sure that we try and make the lives of citizens easier. And that's what this parking authority has been set up by the governor to do.
What are you bringing to the table in terms of access to the land to build those kinds of parking lots that you're talking about?
So if you're an investor, Jimba, and you say to me, I've seen land, I don't know, Lekki 1, you want to build a car park. Is it government land? Is it private land? If it's private land, you want to meet the owners of the land. The amount of inquiries we've had from people that want to build car parks, even in Lagos Island, believe it or not, as congested as it is, those people that understand the value, the return of the business will tell you that they have land. Yes, there's a house on it at the moment. They'll take it down.
You think that's encourageable?
Perhaps so in some areas, because what is the quality of life if you built a house but there's nowhere to park? To get to the house is a nightmare. You spend 6 hours trying to get into your street. What quality of life does that give you? But if somebody who owns his property that is in an area where it is viable to build a car park says, okay, you know what, I've looked at my return on investment as a businessman and I feel like I could build a car park here. I know what my margins would be and I will get it back in 2 years, 3 years or whatever. Why should we discourage such? Parking, whether or not you like it, is a fundamental part of everyday life. As long as you have a vehicle, you must find somewhere to park it. And in as much as you must find somewhere to park it, then there needs to be certain standards to be set in relation to how those vehicles are parked. That's why we're here.
You'll be dealing with like parking 5 million cars every day.
Well, we won't be dealing with it directly, but we'll be making sure that those 5 million cars are parked correctly, yes. I believe that we're here to solve a problem first. It is finding a solution first. Then we'll look at the monetary terms. Of course, like I've told you before, there are so many different faces involved in parking. You know, the unions collect their own money, which is to do with their garages. Sometimes some of them come out and collect on street. You have some area boys collecting them. So do we really have a figure as such to say, yes, we know how much on-street parking is in Lagos? No, because it's been unregulated so far. Do I have an idea? Perhaps you hear different figures always thrown up in the press. I can't vouch for any of those figures. But what I do know from our own homework and our findings, based on the number of parking bays we envisage we can create in Lagos, we know it is a viable business for anybody that is interested in it. We are not going to run the concessions on that by ourselves. We need Lagosians to come on board and run it. It's a business.
How are you going to deal with the dishonest ones?
Well, I think the world has advanced enough, at least in some form, in terms of technology, to be able to catch most of the people out. You can't catch everyone out, but I'm sure we can catch most people out.
So how do you encourage the youths to be part of this?
I would say, especially to the women, no work is impossible to be good at if you work at it. I'm a woman. Most times people come into my office, first of all, they're surprised. First, it's a woman, number one. The second thing is they expect us to be perhaps uneducated or touts, which always surprises me. I can't tell you how many people, when they look at me, you're like, you head this place. And I'm like, why? Am I supposed to be a tout or uneducated? You know, it's that impression that perhaps has been given by other sectors of transport that rubs people off the wrong way. What I say to women and I say to youth, that look, get in where you can and be good at what you do. You can learn. You might not be good on the first day, but if you're focused, you're driven, you're dedicated, you will get there. For me, I saw a vision of how we could transform Lagos with parking, how we could bring it up to the likes of the Londons and other major cities in the world and restructure parking. And we're here today. So if I can do it, I see no reason why anybody else can't. You know, I'm not from a political background, but when you have leadership that believes in vision-carrying people, this is a prime example of that. So I say to the youth, if you believe in it, go for it. We encourage the youth to come up. I must tell you, a lot of people that have brought technology to us are the youth. Most of those developers are under 30. They range from about 21 to about 35. They are the ones doing the core work at the back. And it's phenomenal, the amount of talent we have in Nigerian youth. You know, so we are looking to embrace that. We're saying come on board. If you don't want to come on board from the technology aspect, there are other ways you can come on board. You can be an agent, you know. And how do we help you progress is what we're after. And I truly believe that that is what the government too is after. We want to empower youth. We're not here to just let them be laybys, you know. Let us see how we can help. You have so much talent wasting. Why? Like I said to you earlier, the other day I was at the passport office. And this guy came to me and said, oh, I should pay for parking. Very well spoken. I took his number, by the way, because I was just so impressed. I was like, what? And you're here? And he was like, he doesn't even mind being here, but he would like to do it the right way, not running anytime he sees a government officer coming, they are coming to carry him, he's going to hide. If that kind of person wears his uniform every day and he knows that by 7 o'clock in the evening he's taking something tangible home to his family, is that not dignity? Is that not what we want as a people? And that's what we are trying to achieve here.
Mrs. Adebisi Adelabu, the General Manager, Lagos State Parking Authority, we sincerely thank you for talking to us here on Control TV and to explain how all of this is going to work for a better Lagos.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.